career path perspective on research performance from a Dean Research. Today, we have Associate Professor Teah with us. Thank you so much, Min, for your time today.
Hi, Park. Good to see you, and thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you. So the first question that I like to ask you as a Dean Research is, what are some of the expectations in terms of KPI for a lecturer or a senior lecturer, let's say if they want to go for a job promotion in the coming years?
Mm. Thanks, Park. I think the first question is about career trajectory. So, as a lecturer or senior lecturer, I think you're really setting yourself up for a perhaps where you would like to go. So, thinking about pipeline approach is important, and perhaps looking at what would be your intended portfolio of work going down the track. So perhaps thinking about from publications or research output standpoint, you probably would need to think about certain quality targets. I think there is definitely a balance between quantum and quality. Also thinking around who you would like to work with, collaborations, because I think those are some of the things that could perhaps bring you for a longer period of time rather than perhaps looking at lecturer and senior lecturer. You're really working towards, perhaps maybe if you want to, level D and E down the track. So I think from a bigger perspective, what's some of the pipeline groundwork you can set up? Networks are very important. I do think both within the academy as well as outside different stakeholders. And it depends on the track you might be going down. Some people would probably be working towards more industry-driven sort of research, and perhaps some would be more discovery or blue sky research. And having a flavor, experimenting, and having an appreciation and learning, I think those are the things that are significantly important. Learn from others, peers, but also looking for mentors that can perhaps give you different perspectives and flavor, so that you can have a bit of a sense of what the future years will look like. Other than that, I do think there is value in working in across disciplinary and multidisciplinary teams, just again, sharing different perspectives. And I think those are some of the things that can give you some ideas, inspiration for sort of research you want to focus on. So something to think about, more or less.
Thank you. I really like when you talk about the flavor and work in terms of multidiscipline. I might touch that part later, but can you please
Sure.
explore about, you mentioned about quality of research. What do you mean by quality?
It's a very good question. I think there is the metrics side of things whereby you really look at perhaps, there are national, international metrics, perhaps looking at journal listings, looking at AA start. That's one way of looking at it, impact factor, if so to speak, citations. I think looking at the way perhaps academia is working, probably beyond Australia alone, is really thinking about what's your narrative here. So what's the impact you would like to make through your publications or your research outputs. So when we talk about quality, you also look at the way you do research, perhaps from a novel methodology, or different types of methodology application of that, because not everybody has a research topic or focus in a discipline. Some people are very much experts in the methodology. So how do you apply that and work with different people? I think quality will also come to the type of data you collect and how do you go about it, and perhaps the rigor and the reliability of your work. And again, working with different stakeholders, perhaps beyond the academy, what does that translate? What does that look like? So when I think about quality, I think metrics is a very important part of it, especially when you're working in this sector. But again, thinking beyond the sector, what would that look like? What does quality mean? I think there is definitely a
Mm.
worthwhile discussion, but perhaps also a consideration. And that will help set a person or individual impact narrative, and again, career narrative.
Yes, yes. I think that is a very good point about impact. So perhaps this impact is also mean how the industry actually use your research and apply or say news article, news coverage and all that. And you did touch about the metric of say, if I'm not wrong, you are referring to say A star, ABDC, A or FT50, those type of metrics
Correct.
for what
That's
journal you go
correct.
after. Okay, sure. Now, you did mention about work multidiscipline. I think it's a very good idea and which I myself trying to explore as well. There used to be a saying that say, if I am in the Department of Marketing and if I were to publish in say, management, tourism, or law or economic, it will not be part of the my say 1505, the marketing code, and it will not count towards job promotion. What do you have to say about this aspect?
Oh, it's an interesting one. I think there are perhaps take it a bit. There are a few ways to go about this. I think if you're really looking at institutional level sort of a KPI, I think you need to look at those as a career trajectory within a specific institution. However, I think it really comes down to individual choice and the decisions you make. Considering different people's career trajectory and years in this sector could span across a few decades. So thinking about why you work with others, is it the sort of work you would like to do would have greater degree of impact for industry or government or policy work? Then I guess the question is, it's not quite easy often to work within a specific discipline and to look at FOR codes as the one and only measure. However, if you do have, let's say, if your institution or your faculty or your school is driven towards making sure that there's a depth of research within this FOR code, and that's going to be the way to get promoted, I do think there is value in pursuing that. And because, after all, we work within an institution. However, I think this is the part whereby you look at a portfolio of work. There are some that are very much catered to an institutional target, but what about those that might be something that you really want to explore? And again, where you might add depth and value in terms of engagement and impact. So I think thinking from both sides of the lens is equally important.
Right, that is very good. That is not just research, but impact and on some other thing as well,
Yeah,
and the service part. Can I ask another question? There used to be a
sure.
saying something like, we should always just focus on A and A star. And if you were to do C and B rank or non-ranking journals, it will hurt your promotion or it will hurt your profile. Is this true or is not true?
Um, Again, it goes back to there's no true or false in this equation, largely because there is again different institutionals work differently, and again priorities can change. And bigger than that, I think you need to look at the national and international landscape when it comes to research conversations. Um, for example, when you're looking at even rankings, take ABDC, A star and A, it may not equate to perhaps the same list as you would apply with FT50s and CAPS 4 star, for example. Not everything is exactly the same. So ABDC has have a more comprehensive list. Then when you look at SJR, now that's another conversation as well. And some people use impact factor. Now that's another different conversation. Again, there are also others that might look at engagement impact from the sense that how many people have read, have cited your work. Citations become a different conversation.
Mm.
So I do think that when you're really looking at a research and one paper, it's not sufficient to craft a narrative. Really, you need to look at a portfolio of work. Where do you go? And is there something that you're actually lending specific expertise to? I do think that when you are in, let's say, level B and C, maybe you have a breadth of work, but as you focus, you'll probably be known to be an expert in a specific area, be it nationally or internationally, driving some sort of engagement and impact within your local community, nationally and internationally being known for something. So I do think when it comes to ranking, you really do need to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Now, unranked journals and Cs and that sort of thing. Now, the question is why? Why would you want to publish in these outlets? Is there a very strong justification? Is it going to be because of the target audience? Is it a practitioner-based audience? Does that mean that your work will be seen by a different audience that might lend itself to being used in a different way? Now, that's a different conversation entirely. Also, some of these journals, depending on the audience, the way you write it is also going to be different. So it really looks at your skill set, building of skills, and how do you communicate with intent and purpose as opposed to just rankings. And again, for example, there are some colleagues who do demand or more what we call industry-driven research. The data itself might not be necessarily suited for A or A star publication, can be better suited to B publication. At the same time, it could add to the quantum of work you have rather than just all A and A stars or the quality of it, so to speak. So something to think about as a portfolio rather than just looking at this is the only reason why I'm not doing it and maybe having a appreciation of why you should not do it. Thank you.
Thank you. That is a very interesting perspective. I like to build more on, say, portfolio of, say, associate professor or a senior lecturer who want to be promoted, say a senior lecturer to become an associate professor or an associate professor to become a professor, what is it the element as a dean research? What do you look at? What is the extra thing that you look at?
I think it really comes down to the panel as well. And again, some of the strategic conversations on the table. What are some of the perhaps university priorities and goals? So if you're really looking at, and I go back to the point of career, like you need to show sustained performance over a period of time. And again, that is not something that you can build in one day. So it takes a pipeline, and somehow by design, and some days, some years you have a good year, some years it might not be as fruitful years or productive years, and that's pretty much something that we all see the peaks and troughs in our career. So I do think sustained performance is important. So whether this is something you really, really want to pursue over the path of your career. And again, research is one of those things that evolve over time. So there might be something that might be a sudden new emerging trend, so to speak, and you might suddenly see a growth of work in this area, or probably an importance in this area. And so those are the things that you can hardly plan, but sometimes it comes as a bit of a chance and coincidence. And as a result, you might win more grants that year. So I do think this sort of thing is about sustained performance over a long period of time. And whether, again, you can add depth and breadth of work to your portfolio, I do think that is a bigger chance of getting you promoted, be it not in the near future. I think at some point in time that would likely happen. So I guess it's thinking the long game as opposed to immediate wins, but then you need to sustain that over a period of time. Hopefully that answers.
Yes, thank you very much. I like the point that you talk about build your own brand image and brand personality about which area of research you are known for, and it takes years to
Yeah.
build, as you mentioned. You also talk about understanding the priority of the research that the school look at, meaning understand our target market of, okay, what is the school that we are working for, look after, or what do they want? Also, if we look for a new job, we have to understand the new target job, like, okay, what type of ranking, what type of journal, what type of research, what type of project do they want us to do? So do we fit into those things? Can I please ask you, I will move on to the next question in terms of
Yep.
grants and all that. As I see in the last few years, there is a new, trend towards that. Some people say grant projects is more important than academic publications. Do you think this statement is it true, or it should be work hand on hand?
It's hard to not look at it hand in hand. So, for example, there are certain grants, if you look at it, allows you to generate good publication. And actually, that's part of the requirements of those grants. At the same time, you need to have publications, quantum and quality, in order for you to be known for something so that you can secure grants, because that's how you build your profile. So I don't think it's not one or the other. I do think these two things work in tandem. Having said this, I think one of the things to look at is also about building teams, and again, engagement and impact. What we mean by that really is looking at what sort of exposure. When you're looking at profiling, in the academy, maybe, when you talk about publications or specific research outputs, that can perhaps lend you to have a profile within the academy. However, if you're looking at perhaps other grants that might not be necessarily just targeted at specific types of work, then you are looking at maybe government, you need to engage with, let's say, certain industry partners. That's a very different skill set. And again, you still need to show your ability to undertake some work and different sort of, or expand your ability to deliver beyond publications. And again, that's where the skills will come in. It's not so much about choosing one or the other. The question is whether you are ready to be able to undertake some of this work that may not necessarily be something perhaps the more conventional research training is preparing us for. And again, I do think, going back to my point before, is really a portfolio of work. Where do you really want to dedicate your time? And again, if that's not your area of specialization, can you work in complement with other teams to be able to achieve those goals?
Perfect, perfect. So that is a portfolio that we should be, building and plan well ahead for the next few years. So
Yes.
yeah. As a dean research, have you or do you see a new trend that have become more, popular in the past 10 years from the research perspective in terms of the career development?
It's
Or
an
not really?
interesting one.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that. I think when you say trends, they do tend to change. And I do think at this point in time, an appreciation of perhaps where the sector is going from, let's say, based on the university accord is something important to look at. Again, I think things like, keeping an eye on the national science and research priorities is very important. I do think that one of the things perhaps more topical would be around sustainability sort of research. I know the conversation around SDGs is one that is rife. However, where I think we will see a bit more of a shift is around multi and cross-disciplinary lenses into how to solve maybe greater and bigger problems that goes beyond just one singular discipline. So I think working together and again sharing different perspectives and bringing different skill sets to the table to drive a project and to win to maybe I'll say to achieve grand outcomes is going to be a very important one.
Yes, I think that's very good. Now, let me touch you the last questions, Min.
Sure.
So, if you were to be able to go back in time, what would be the one suggestion that you might want to suggest and give it to your younger self in terms of career development?
What I wish I had known back then. I think there are certain things. I think I would say, um, looking at how to what narrative do I want to bring to the table? I think having a bit of a lens around what having an appreciation across the board of different types of research and really working with different types of mentors. I think that's something that's very important. Again, I don't think there is ever a shortage of and value in putting and engaging in networks and building long-term sustained relationships with different stakeholders. I do think those are some of the things I would probably tell my older self. Again, building different skills. I think that's one of the things I would also tell my younger self. So a lot of things I would tell my younger self, if I'm to be honest, but these are just the key ones I can think of.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think getting a good mentor is very good. Some people might have a few
Very
mentors in
important.
different area, and also
Yes.
building a network is also good for grants and work with the governments and partnerships and conversation like this that we are having. So thank you so much for your time today. So this is career path perspective on research performance from a dean research with Associate Professor Min Teah. Thank you so much, Min, for your time today.
Thank you very much, Park.
Thank
Thank you.
you.